Coming up, Cartwheel for a Cure with my guest Lucy Musgrave. First today, stay on top of your health. Start by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Health doesn't need to be complicated. Click subscribe today and make trusted advice part of your routine. My guest today is Lucy Musgrave OBE. After treatment for acute myeloid leukemia, Lucy decided to mark her recovery with a daily cartwheel. Now she's leading Cartwheel for a Cure, a national campaign to raise £200,000 for vital research. She's also one of the UK's leading voices in architecture and urban design, shaping policy and public space for over 30 years. Please welcome Lucy Musgrave OBE. Thanks, Lucy, for being here today. Your personal involvement in Cartwheel for a Cure is because you've suffered from acute myeloid leukemia yourself. Tell me about how it was originally diagnosed, how you felt, what the symptoms were.
Well, shockingly, actually, I was one of the 37% of people who get diagnosed in an emergency situation. So, unfortunately, this incredibly aggressive cancer, which obviously you know all about, I knew nothing about. I thought leukemia was a childhood cancer, or maybe I'd perhaps heard that a few adults, but I didn't really know what leukemia was. I didn't even know it was a blood cancer. And it was 2021, and we were still in the throes of the whole COVID lockdown and all the issues around COVID in this country and internationally. And I'd never actually been poorly in my life. I've broken a few bones in my time, but I've never really had any serious health problems. And I got mild shingles that spring, which I didn't really understand what it was. And then I picked up a virus, and it was in the summer, and I couldn't see my GP. So they'd tested for COVID, and it wasn't the COVID virus. And I had a video call with the GP surgery. And she said, if you picked up a virus, give us a ring back, in a few weeks' time if it doesn't get any better. And I remember feeling so exhausted, and we had gone down to Cornwall on holiday, and I couldn't lift my head off the pillow. I was that poorly kind of thing, which was very unusual for me. And then a few weeks later, I didn't feel that much better, and the doctor said, maybe post-viral fatigue. So wait another 6 weeks. It can last 6 weeks, post-viral fatigue, and give us a ring back if you don't feel any better. And we went off on holiday to my in-laws, who had a house in the south of France, and they were packing up the house, actually. They were leaving the house. So we really wanted to go, and we went by train. And I remember getting there and thinking, I haven't really got enough energy to get to the lunch table. I really want to lie down, but I also run my own business. So I was constantly, as we all were at that time, on Zoom calls and, on the computer a lot. And then eventually took the train back. And I remember being in Paris and really not being able to walk to the station and feeling very, very weak. I wasn't really aware that things were getting dramatically more serious. I guess my family were watching me. I
was going to say, what did the family notice? Did they say, Mum, you're not, your usual sort of energetic self?
Yeah, I think everyone was quite surprised, but also I think maybe sometimes in a family you don't want to say, is there something more serious? And I remember my husband's dad saying afterwards how scared he was that weekend because of my pallor. I was very pale, I was very weak, and he was really concerned. I didn't really pick up on that. I think when you're a person yourself going through it, a patient, you don't really know that.
No, that's right. You sort of assume things. I mean, obviously, your doctor was making assumptions as well, putting it down to a virus, which is often the case. And that's reasonable, giving it a 10 days or so. Most people recover from a viral infection within 10 days. So post-viral fatigue you often see with something more serious like infectious mononucleosis, glandular fever. But, and again with COVID, long COVID certainly, but with ordinary cold viruses, no, you would normally pick up within 10 days, a fortnight. So you're obviously quite a stoical person. You put up with this for quite a long time.
Well, I think a lot of people do. If you just assume you're going to get better.
Sure.
And and without actually being able to see a GP face to face at that time, it was probably,
which is an ongoing problem for many people.
Absolutely.
So, what was the final straw? What made you get that diagnosis?
Well, actually, to be honest, although I'd never done this before, I went to a private GP to get a blood test because my brother-in-law just said go to my GP and get a blood test, and I just said okay.
That's what families are for, looking after you.
Yeah. And so I went to a GP, he took a blood test, and then I went home and he phoned me the next day and said, could you go to A&E? And I thought, great, somebody's taking it seriously. Like, actually, somebody, it's not just this kind of ongoing kind of burden of feeling poorly. There's something wrong with me. And I went to UCLH and I walked into A&E.
Well, it's interesting that in my day as a GP, if I'd seen the result of that blood test, I'd be on the phone to the haematologist, bypassing A&E.
Okay.
Because that's the last place you wanted to be.
Yeah.
Where you could pick up another infection.
Yes.
It should have been straight to the ward. And I hope that system comes back. This is an abnormal blood test, straight to the haematologist, onto the ward.
To his credit, he did say ask for this consultant when I got there. I didn't know what haematology was or anything, but he said ask for this doctor, which I did, but at A&E they just said no, you just got to sit down and wait your turn. So
you had some classical symptoms. So you had the fatigue, you had pallor, you were pale because you weren't making enough red blood cells. You had frequent infections, so a viral infections, shingles of course, and famously if you have shingles on both sides it's often indicative of cancer.
Is it?
Usually shingles is on one side of the body, so on both, but I don't know where your shingles was.
I'm learning a lot this morning.
Well, that's part of it, but I'm learning a lot from you as well. That fatigue and bruising. Did you have any abnormal bruising?
At that point, I didn't notice it. Subsequently, when I was in treatment, extraordinary bruising.
Yes, because all the elements that are made in the bone marrow, the platelets, which stop you bruising, the red blood cells, which are diminished in anemia, and the white blood cells, which protect you against infection, they're all diminished. So those are the classic symptoms, and they shouldn't be ignored. So you went to A&E, and you waited, and I waited,
and it was crazy. So UCLH London, big London hospital, off the Euston Road, very, very busy A&E, and I waited, and eventually I went through to the next part of A&E, which is sort of where you got a few seats and people are waiting to then get you into the session. And then they asked me I'd been there for a number of hours, I can't remember how many, but it felt like the whole night. Then they asked me to go onto a side ward of A&E and to sit on a chair, and I saw a bed, and there was one bed with no patient in it, and I crawled, I could hardly walk, I crawled onto that bed, and the nurse said, no, you can't lie on that bed. And I said, I can't move, I need to be on this bed. And she just sort of shrugged and said, okay. And I was in the bed, and then a nurse came to see me, and I remembered her because she was called Rita, and my youngest daughter is called Rita. I've got 4 daughters.
Right.
And she did a procedure. I have no memory of it whatsoever. I now know she took a bone marrow sample, but I had that night, I had no idea what was happening to me. I don't know if they'd given me medication, or I've got no memory. And then the next morning, they said, we were going to take you up to the haematology unit. And I didn't know what haematology was. I mean, it's to have my ignorance. I mean, I really, really had never thought about these things. And then they said, no, we need to call your husband.
Right. And I understand you then saw a consultant who was extremely forthcoming.
Amazing.
And direct, and told you what the journey was going to entail.
So Mr. got to this amazing consultant. So that I think the registrar or somebody had said, your husband needs to be here. So I thought, okay, they're going to tell me I've got cancer. And I thought, I've had this amazing life, what's the worst thing they can say to me? I've got 6 months to live, I've been so lucky. And I was thinking of all the things that I needed to do in the next 6 months. So I was all prepared, kind of thing. And then Zad, my husband, arrived. The consultant arrived, and he stood at the end of the bed, and he said, you've got acute myeloid leukemia and it's curable. And I just thought, yes. And he said, it's my job to ensure that you are alive to your 80s or 90s. And I just thought, yes.
That sounds right.
And he said, but if we don't start immediately,
yes,
you don't make it to Christmas. So we have to start immediately. And this is going to be very intensive chemotherapy. And I just said, bring it on. Let's just start. Just let's start. And then realised that the man sitting next to me, my husband, was sort of like, oh, we've got a problem now. You know, this is really a big deal for the family.
Which was the word that you heard first, leukemia or cure?
Cure, definitely.
That's
cure.
the one that you latched onto straight
yeah,
away. Yeah,
totally.
But even leukemia must have been scary. Not for you, perhaps.
Yeah, but for everyone else, I think. Yeah, because I think there isn't much awareness of this disease. And of course, now I know a lot about, you know, leukemia and people's recovery or not.
Now, you say that when the consultant spoke to you and gave you that diagnosis, you were able to immediately reflect on the life you'd already had. Yeah. Because you saw yourself as the luckiest person on the planet.
Absolutely.
So just tell me a little bit about what had preceded this diagnosis. I mean, your wonderful career in...
Well, it's not just about work, about the people I work with, which is their amazing team. It's also, I've got these incredible 4 daughters. I've been so lucky.
What's their age range?
They're from 22 to 28, and 4 amazing girls and young women, and got a wonderful family, surrounded by love. I've been very lucky. I've been very, very lucky.
And you founded Publica.
Yeah,
and you've got an OBE. Tell me about Publica. What basically is that involving?
So we are urban designers, and we work at 3 different scales. So we either work at a citywide scale, setting policy like making London a child-friendly city, or women and girls and gender diverse people's safety in the public realm, or how we design for the nighttime, or we reset whole neighbourhoods and districts with landowners and local planning authorities, or we design streets and spaces. So yeah, we've been very privileged to work for some incredible civic leaders and design some amazing streets and spaces. Yeah.
Well, amazing work. And so suddenly here you are with a serious illness, lying in a hospital bed at UCL, thinking, you know, what's this treatment going to be involved in? And the treatment had to start immediately. So what was the first thing that happened?
It took a couple of days, and I think I had a lot of blood transfusions. I honestly can't remember. Yeah. They allowed me to see my daughters so they could come in. It was COVID time, so there was actually real restrictions in terms of visits. I was lucky enough to be supported by Zad's parent company, a communications agency, who helped me actually write to everybody. And I wanted everyone to be really clear that I hadn't just disappeared and I had some illness. I wanted to be really upfront and say, I didn't really have any choice, because I didn't know if I was going to get out of there, and I was definitely going to be in for 6 months, and I knew that. So I wrote a letter with their help to all our collaborators and clients and the team and everybody I knew, and saying, this is what's happened to me, and this is what's going to happen to the business, and etc. And I had a chance to speak to all our family and, you know, and see my daughters and so forth. So there's a bit of that going on for the first few days.
Did you tell your daughters straight away?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
And how did they react?
At the time, I was very well versed in terms of my own, like, I wanted to say there's good news and bad news, you know, and the good news is that it's curable, and actually we're starting treatment, and, you know, and this is what's going to happen. You know, it's not great that I've got acute myeloid leukemia, but, you know, we've got some positive energy here, and we're going to get on with the treatment. So, yeah, I thought about that.
You're making me reflect quite a lot on my career, because I worked on a leukemia ward at the Royal Free Hospital, and it was one of the most important parts of my career, because I learned so much. You know, there were children and adults coming in with different kinds of leukemia, the acute leukemias and the chronic leukemias, which are treated differently in many respects. So I remember talking to patients and putting up the drips with the blood to replace the red blood cells and the white cells and the platelets, and then spinal taps as well were necessary. And I got very involved with the patients. You know, you get to know them, because they're in, as you know, a hospital for quite a long time. And I one of the things I always remember was losing a close friend at school at the age of 14 to leukemia. And it made me think, one day I'd like to make a difference in some way. Maybe it forged my decision to go into medicine. But so leukemia and lymphoma, which are related, has always been very important to me. So there you were. You had the transfusions to start with to replenish what your bone marrow wasn't making, but then you needed to start the treatment, and that must have been daunting, the chemotherapy.
I didn't really know what was going to happen, and you're just in the hands of this incredible NHS at its absolute best, and you're surrounded by the expertise and the care and the humour and everything. Mm. And maybe because it was also COVID times, I was in a bit of a bubble because I could only have 2 visits a week. So it felt like I was me and my nurses. And my first nurse walked in and he wrote on my whiteboard in the room, and he said, "Humour is healing." And he turned around and he said, "My name's Bert and I'm going to make you laugh every day."
That's nice.
And there's just this incredible team of expertise, basically. And they thought about everything, every detail, when your hair was going to fall out, what was going to happen with all those aches and pains and sores, and how to look after you. And they were incredible.
So when the drips arrived with the chemotherapy in them, did you know what to expect? And you would have had several courses of chemo. I had 4 over the 6 months, and the first time I didn't know what was going to happen, and then quite quickly I started every day they're telling you about your white blood count, every detail of, your platelets, everything. And I kept a list to see, when it's going down, when it's going up and everything. And just this tiny, tiny details and I kind of held on to those tiny details because you're kind of, you haven't got much energy, but I just decided what energy I had was this tiny bit of positive energy. And if I could grow the positive energy and I could get those white blood cells up, then I could just hang on.
Yeah,
because you talked about energy in spoonfuls.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Tell me about spoonfuls of energy.
Well, I only learnt about this after finishing treatment, but I was told that sometimes if you have chronic health issues and you're dependent on other people, you have to think of yourself you wake up with 10 spoonfuls of energy. And then when you make decisions during the day, how many spoons have you got left before you decide that you're going to do that thing?
Okay. You can prioritise things.
Yeah, and you prioritise things. Yeah, exactly. You decide where you're going to put your energy. And at that point, when I was in hospital, it was just this very visceral feeling of clinging on to this minuscule bit of energy in my body. And I knew it was positive energy, and I knew I had to grow it, and that was my only focus.
And you were in hospital for how long?
So I had, I'd be in, for the first 5 weeks. So that was 5 weeks. And they sent me home for a respite period. And then I was able to start the next round. And then quite quickly, as you'll know, you get neutropenic. So you're very exposed to any infection. And they want you on a drip with antibiotics within 20 minutes of your temperature going up. So I was very, very closely monitored. And of course, as soon as you start the next round, you pick up an infection and you're back in hospital. So basically, in and out with respite, it was 6 months in hospital.
And then eventually, the good news.
Remission.
That must have been a fantastic word to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I just, when it got to round 3, I actually felt I couldn't go on. Everything was falling apart in your body. And then finishing round 4 and then being told that you're in remission. Yeah, it was extraordinary. Yeah.
Any relapses?
No, not at all. I had another year of treatment. So I had what they call a maintenance drug, midostaurin, and that was to bolster it so that it wouldn't come back. And I've been very, very well looked after by that team, yeah.
I know you speak very highly of them.
Incredible.
And they're pretty permanent staff, aren't they?
Yeah.
They get job satisfaction to a 10th degree, umpteenth degree, and they stay in the job. But there's none of the revolving door that you sometimes hear in other departments.
Yeah.
And those staff were very important to you.
Absolutely. And that's in a way why I started fundraising for the nurses to be able to support their training and education around leukemia treatment. Yeah.
Now, cartwheels.
Okay.
Where did they come from?
Well, as a small child, I used to love gymnastics, but I actually wasn't able to. I had a problem with my back and I wasn't able to carry on with my gymnastics age 9. And as a family joke, I used to do 1 cartwheel a year. And it was just my own message to myself that I actually could do a cartwheel still, age whatever, in my 30s, 40s, whatever. And when I was in hospital, I've got 2 best friends, and they said, if you get out of here, we'll take you wherever you want to go in the world. And I knew exactly where I wanted to go if I got out. And it was to a small island called Espiritu Santos in the Sea of Cortez in Mexico. Uh-huh. And the reason was that a family friend who's an environmental lawyer had saved this island from a casino being built on it. And it's now a UNESCO marine conservation area. And he'd told me a lot about it, but I just thought, I want to see that island. And to commemorate the island, this amazing moment of the marine kind of an ecosystem, he'd commissioned a sculptor called Cristina Iglesias to make a sculpture to commemorate the island, and she put it on the seabed.
Wonderful.
And I used to be a sports diver when I was much younger, and I just wanted to, with a snorkel and mask, not with tanks, just to go and see that sculpture. That's what I wanted to do from my hospital bed. I just thought, that's where I want to go.
That was on your bucket list?
On my bucket list, right at the top. So we went there, I came out of the water and I said to Liesl, hold my camera, I'm going to do 12 cartwheels just for myself to mark this incredible year of survival. I've survived 12 years of this treatment and I'm going to mark it. And so I did 12 cartwheels on a beach in Mexico, and that was that. And then a few weeks later, I was back at UCLH for the nurses' Christmas party. Had a glass of wine in my hand because I was better, and seeing all my favourite nurses, and the speeches started. And to my horror, everyone that spoke had lost a family member to leukemia. So I'm standing there thinking, I'm poleaxed emotionally, thinking, why am I here? Why did I survive and they didn't survive? And then the reason that they're speaking is that they're fundraising. So they're cycling and running and doing marathons and swimming. So the next thought that goes into my head is like, what can I do? I can't do any of those things. I can't run for a bus. I don't know what I would do if I was fundraising. And then in my head, I thought, I can do a cartwheel. So without telling anyone, on January the 1st, 2023, I started cartwheeling every day, once a day. And I got strangers to hold my camera in the street, and I raised £28,500 for the nurses, for their education and training. And I did 1,000 cartwheels, and I was very happy.
Amazing. You haven't injured yourself doing it?
No. I've done my knee in at the moment, but it's swimming rather than cartwheeling. But yeah. And then I started a national campaign.
Cartwheeling for a Cure.
Yeah.
And the aim of that is to raise a lot of money.
So I'm aiming to raise £200,000 for one John Goldman fellowship into acute myeloid leukemia, and it's for Leukaemia UK, which is this incredible national charity. Yes. So I moved it from being a very personal story about me to try and limber up the nation and get everyone cartwheeling. Yeah. I've met a lot of people, particularly children, but sports clubs, and a lot of people who love this movement for joy and can do a cartwheel or a cart twirl, as we call it. If you can't do a cartwheel and don't want to go on your hands, you can do another movement for joy.
Absolutely.
And we're going to do a national cartwheeling day every 30th of June forevermore. One leg in one half of the year, one leg in the other half year.
Excellent. Now, the John Goldman Fellowship is to allow a researcher to come on board and look for a cure for leukemia. Yeah. Your ideal is to find kinder treatments, more effective treatments. And we're getting there. I mean, going back to the time when I lost my friend Tom at school, the treatments for leukemia have come on in leaps and bounds. So more people are surviving. And we're talking about 3,100 diagnoses every year with this type of leukemia. So we do need better treatments. We need kinder treatments. As I say, we're getting there, but a lot needs to happen. You've met some of these researchers, haven't you? I
have. I've been so privileged to go into the lab, and I actually had this extraordinary experience where with Leukaemia UK, they said, you might be interested in a lab tour for some of the funders at UCLH, your hospital. I said, I'd love to do that. And then I went, and in the Q&A session, one of the researchers was describing her work. And somebody spoke behind me, and it was my consultant, Mark Mansour. And I sort of turned around, and Mark sort of said, "What are you doing here? What are you doing?" And he took me aside in the coffee break, and he said, "There's something you need to know. You're going to meet Jessie in the lab." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Jessie's researching your cells."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, wow." And went downstairs, and suddenly feeling like my whole worlds are kind of somehow coming in on each other. And there was this fabulous young woman in a white coat, and I walked towards her and I said, "Jessie, I'm Lucy." And she said, "I know who you are." And I thought, "Oh, wow." And she said, "Because you came and did a cartwheel at the nurse's Christmas party." Anyway, no, the research, I mean, a bit like, I assume your friend Tom, my father, who died from cancer young, and in fact his birthday is on the 30th of June, which is why National Cartwheeling Day is the 30th of June. If they had been diagnosed later, modern science would have found a way of people's lives being saved. And the fact about acute myeloid leukemia is only 22% of people survive beyond 5 years, and 50% don't survive 6 months. So it's a terrible, apart from the treatment things that you rightly say, Hilary, it's an absolutely terrible statistic. We haven't actually dealt with this. And I was told that when they started treatment on me, that if I'd been diagnosed 5 years before, they wouldn't have been able to help me. No. So I'm here because of the NHS and because of modern science and a lot of care. But imagine what we could do if we could actually push funding towards more research.
And how extraordinary that there was a young woman in a white coat studying you on a cellular level.
Yeah.
Your leukemia cells, looking at them and seeing how they behave, what the genetics are, and what influences them.
And I think, Jessie, in terms of what they're doing there, if their holy grail is to be able to screen. So in the future, if they could work their way back to actually being able to screen for leukemia, then nobody would have to go through all of the things that me and all the fellow patients have been through.
How do people sort of sign up to do their cartwheels or their gyratories and donate? How do they do that?
So we're doing lots of things. We're just encouraging primary schools. We've got a digital pack for teachers, for sports clubs, for anybody who goes to a gym, who does a 5K run. In terms of if you want to get involved, do a cartwheel. So get in touch with Leukaemia UK or Cartwheel for a Cure, which is its own little campaign. We're putting together a website called the Cart Wall of Fame. So a lot of famous people have been cartwheeling. Bethany England, one of the Lionesses, has done a beautiful cartwheel. Lee Francis, the actor, Keith Lemon has done a fantastic, amazing cartwheelers, basically. Monty Douglas helped me launch the whole thing. She's an Olympian and a Strictly star and a gladiator. She's fire in Gladiator.
Right.
So all of these people are trying to raise awareness and get the nation limbering up their cartwheels or their cartwheels. And then next 30th of June, we're going to absolutely hit a world-breaking record for cartwheeling. And in the meantime, you can donate to a Just Giving page, which is called Cartwheel for a Cure on Just Giving. Fantastic. And we've raised £50,000 already, and we've just started,
Wonderful. Well, that's such a good cause. So I hope people get on board straight away, start cartwheeling, and you carry on as well.
Carry
on the good work.
Thank you.
Very well on it. Thank you so much for joining me, Lucy. And I hope people have learnt a lot about the symptoms and the treatments, and that there is a cure, and we need more research, and we'll get there in the future.
Can I just add one thing about my treatment, which was that whilst in the middle of all of this, they needed to find a donor for a transplant. If the chemotherapy didn't work, then the next stage would be a bone marrow transplant. And to our absolute amazement, my sister, so I've got 3 siblings, and my sister was a near perfect match for me. But the incredible thing about Celia, Christy, my sister, who's an amazing woman, was she had been on the bone marrow list, the donor list, for 20 years, and we didn't know it.
Really?
And so I just my daughters now give blood. My sister's been on the bone marrow list for 20 years. That there's so much we can do to help families.
So important.
Going through this.
Yes.
And I was lucky that I didn't have to have the transplant, that it worked. She's my insurance policy if it comes back and I get into relapse. But I just think this idea that we could all do something. And I think that the other thing I wanted to say about research is that a lot of, you're the expert, and you were on that haematology unit at the Royal Free Hospital. But what I've learned about leukemia research is that because they can take matter, they take blood every minute of the day, a lot of the advances in leukemia research is helping other cancer research institutes. So in immunotherapy, chemotherapy treatment, CAR-T, all of these things have come from leukemia research. And some of them, these advances, are hugely beneficial to other cancer research. And because sadly every family in the UK is in some form or other going to be touched with cancer, my agenda is if we could get a lot of money into leukemia research, that everyone will benefit, and that actually that this can be something we can talk about, and that we can fundraise for, and that we can actually tackle this.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And if we can get more people to give blood, to join the bone marrow register, we will save more lives in the future. And that's particularly true of minority groups, because we need their blood groups and their cells.
And all that research needs to go to the right places where these big gaps are that we've, for whatever reason, haven't addressed.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Stay well.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for saying all those good things about UCL and the NHS generally, because they do such brilliant work.
I am the biggest fan.
The NHS is in trouble, it's certainly still doing a fantastic, marvellous job, isn't it?
Absolutely stellar. We should be so proud of the NHS. It's absolutely incredible people,
Thank you, Lucy, very much. Now, don't forget you can watch all of my interviews on the Dr Hilary Show YouTube page, including my recent conversation with Andy Morling on weight loss jabs.
Here we have a genuine Ozempic product. You remember Ozempic was the brand that was the big news story back in 2023. Not licensed for weight loss, but it was being prescribed off-label for that. So one of these are genuine and one of these is fake. I wonder if you could use your considerable expertise in telling which is which.
They look very similar at first glance, don't they? They both say Ozempic, 1 a week, injection. They're very, very similar. They both say 1 milligram injection semaglutide subcutaneous use once weekly. So one of them has copied the other, and they both have an expiry date on them, both of which look genuine. So it'll be very, very difficult to tell. I can't tell the difference.
And you're seeing them side by side as well. So you imagine a member of the public buying them.
Absolutely.
They only get one, so nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not going to push you into choosing one or the other. But this one on the right is the fake.
It's the fake.
And this is the genuine product on the left.
Now, before you go, for up-to-date health news delivered to your inbox each week, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter at drhilaryjones.com. And remember to subscribe on YouTube now so that you don't miss what's coming next. We'll continue the conversation about your health and focus on what truly matters to you.